In my third year of college, I decided I wanted to get my own place to live instead of staying in the dorms. I wanted my own space. I wanted to know that my stuff was safe and that no one was going to take it or borrow any of it, like what tended to happen in the dorms. I had also had a decent paying job and saved up enough to afford all the fees and deposits. First, I was just ready to be out on my own. Now, I have seen many videos about creepy stories and crazy neighbors, and even a show dedicated to crazy neighbors, but it's something you just don't think about until it actually happens to you, and even then you may not see it until someone else points it out. But I had some neighbors that, even without speaking, they let their creep vibes show full time. I found a nice community that had townhomes within my price range, and I was approved and moved in pretty quickly. I don't know if they're the same everywhere, so I'll just explain the outline of ours. Their townhomes were connected in a square shape with one open side. They had about 6 of these, I believe, because they were back to back. My place was in the center row, second from the left, so I had one neighbor to my left, they were the corner unit, and one to my right. For the first couple of weeks, everything went as normal. There were a few nearby neighbors that waved at me. I almost ran into my neighbor on the right, which is how I met them. It was 2 sisters living together with no kids and 2 very large dogs. Very nice people, but my neighbors to the left, I had yet to see any of them for about the month or so that I lived there. As I was coming home from classes, I happened to look up to see a young boy in front of their bay window. I love kids, and since I had not met them yet, I smiled and waved, but he just continued to stare at me, unmoving and with no expression on his face. It was kind of odd, but I just shrugged it off as a kid thing. Maybe he was too shy and did not want to wave. Not a big deal, so I went about my business. But then I went to leave for work that evening, and as I got in my car and went to start it, I spotted not only the boy, but what looked like an older kid. The boy looked maybe 6 or 7 years old, and the girl stood taller and was maybe 11 or 12 years old. Now they were both staring at me, emotionless. I smiled and waved again, but I got the same results. Nothing. Okay, so maybe both kids were shy, but it got even weirder. For a few days, I would just see those 2 kids staring out the window, following me as I walked to my door, and when I left. It was definitely strange being watched almost daily, but it wasn't like it was hurting me, so I never said or did anything about it. I was curious because I would be home in the afternoon sometimes or on my day off, and they would still be there. Did they not go to school? Maybe they were homeschooled. I had no idea. There was a day that I came home from work and had been talking to my mom on the phone. I was sitting in the car as I finished my conversation, and I watched as 2 more people approached the window. This time, it looked like a middle-aged woman and an even older woman. If I had to guess, it looked like a whole family generation. Grandma, mother, and the kids. But what caught my attention was that they approached. The kids looked down at them, and then looked out the window directly at me. So now I had 4 of them staring at me. What the hell? Since I was on the phone already, I told my mom about what I was witnessing, and at first, my mom chuckled and said that maybe they were just really nosy people and watched others. She even said that I should bring them something and introduce myself and see if that helps, and I laughed at the idea because it sounded so old school, but I knew she was probably right. I ran into my other neighbors and they brought me cookies, so it wasn't too far off. I thought the idea over and what exactly I could do, trying to be considerate to allergies or whatever. I've been pretty busy between work and school lately, so I hadn't gotten around to following through with those plans. But their staring never missed a beat. Anytime I was outside, they were at the window. Sometimes it was just the kids. Most of the time, it was all 4 of them. And it just kept escalating. I decided to take a walk after I got home from my classes, and as I left, the 4 of them were in the window. I smiled and waved and got the same response, which was nothing. So I began my walk, but when I circled back around and was walking down the sidewalk leading to my place, I looked up, feeling eyes on me. Now, the complete family was there. The kids, the mom, the grandma, and now what appeared to be the dad and grandpa. The adults were all in black, and the kids seemed to be wearing matching red outfits. They had the same deep red looking shirts with black ruffle collars. Why was the whole family now staring at me? and it was all the same, emotionless, unwavering stares. It was kind of creepy. Now, with everyone present, I waved again, standing right outside the window. They didn't move. They just looked like unsettling, dressed up statues. After going inside, I really tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were just nosy people, and based on how they were dressed and how the kids did not appear to go to school, I thought maybe it was a religious thing even, and I felt bad, thinking I was being very judgmental. So, I made a mental note that I should really try to introduce myself. Maybe, at the very least, they will realize that I noticed them doing this, and maybe stop. But another few days passed, and I came home in a bit of a mood. All 6 of them slowly made their way to the window and watched me walk into my home. I had just gotten back from the store where I bought some cinnamon rolls, so after I baked them, I wrapped them up on a platter and went next door. As I walked over, I noticed one of the kids still sitting at the window, but as I walked up their steps and got closer to look at him, I noticed how his face was really red and puffy, like he'd been crying. Why was he crying? I waved and pointed to the platter, but again, I got nothing out of him, so I just knocked on the door. No response. I stepped back and saw that both kids were now there, and Grandma, and all 3 of them looked like they were crying. What the hell was going on? I knocked again, and then shouted towards the window that I brought them something, but they just stared. Then everyone else slowly walked to the window and stared. Now all 6 of them were back in their same creepy outfits, staring at me, unmoving, emotionless. No one flinched at the doorbell or the knocking. No one answered. Why? Why did they just continue to stare at me? I looked around to see if anyone was watching, and I went down and around the stairs and towards the window. The houses were a little raised, so as I got closer, the bottom of the window was at chest level for me. The moment the kids looked down at me, something in me told me that this was not right. It was like this overwhelming sensation telling me to get the hell out of there. I sat the cinnamon rolls down on the steps and took off back inside my place. Not that I expected them to come stare at me, but I closed up my curtain and locked my door. What the hell was up with these people, and why did it seem like they only ever stared at me? I tried to get my mind off of it, but it was difficult. I had too many questions, and what, if anything, could I even do about it? Nothing. They literally just stared at me. They weren't at my window. They were in their own place. And what would I even say? Hey, have you noticed the weird family that likes to stare in 905? I really don't know anyone well enough to strike up an unusual conversation like that. I knew the girls next door, but we'd only ever talked in passing, so I was just stuck with this every single day. Every single time I left the house, they were watching me. They watched me walk. They watched me come and go. And the plate of cinnamon rolls I left, well, it sat there for 3 days untouched before I finally grabbed them and threw them away. I wasted my money. But did they not even leave in those 3 days? What did they do for a living? Did any one of them work? It was such a bizarre thing to witness, and getting up close and seeing the kids' red puffy eyes that just stared into my soul, I could never forget them. I tried watching on days that I was off early in the morning, late at night, and I never saw anyone leave or anyone enter. No deliveries, nothing. We could pay rent online, so I guess they could do that too. But how did they get food, toiletries? I eventually just had to drop it and accept that I just had these really creepy neighbors that I could do nothing about. For an entire year, I dealt with this, and even when I had people over, they witnessed it. But when my lease came up for renewal, I begged to move to a different townhome, asking for one with a fireplace. The fireplace ones are only on the edge of the strips of homes, so I wouldn't be anywhere near them. Thankfully, they obliged, and I got to move and never to be stared at again. Sometimes I would drive by to see if they were still there, and every once in a while, I would still see someone staring out that window. Be me. Sister and brother talk about going camping. Hype. I love camping. Don't have to get prepared. Have all the shit I need. Wait some more. It's summer. Let's go camp. We're going to Mount Rainier. We've gone there almost 10 times before, sometimes multiple times in a season. Brother bails. It's me, my mother, and my sister. Still go. Get there. Have to hike for a while, but it's a beautiful campsite. Right next to a river. Native strawberries line the side of the river, and native blackberries line some of her parts, some of which are ripe enough to pick. Hype. Make dinner. A simple taco. It was good. Go to sleep. Dog does nothing. Follows me while I take food back down to the car before night falls. Tomorrow. Everything good. Have fun. Have a beer, or free, and have watermelon. Good times. Repeat the previous. Begin to take food down the 15-ish minute walk. Dog doesn't want to follow me. Surprise.jpg. Get the leash and make her follow me. Deliver the food to the car and return without issue. Go to bed after shit talking with my sister. Read 3 chapters of Roadkill after crawling in bed. Fall to bed around 10 to 11. Wake up. It's 11. Hear a call. What the fuck is that? No clue. Long call, and then a growl like a feline. Confused. Wait for a moment. The third call comes. The dog starts barking. Anon? My sister asks. Yeah, I'm up, I say. One more call. It's getting closer, my sister yells. I hear it getting closer. This is its 5th call now. The dog is still barking. My sister yells for my mother to get up. The gun is on the table. I say that light deters predators, and my sister puts out a light in front of her tent. That face when her husband does not do shit during any of this. After the light goes out, I grab the knife underneath my pillow and step out of my tiny tent and go to turn on the lanterns and throw some wood in the dead fire. Another call. Terrifying.jpg. Grab the gun from the table and wait. Mother and sister comes out. Talk for a little bit. Sounds like a cougar. Probably a cougar. Her husband finally comes out and asks for a weapon. Give him a stick I sharpened before for shits and giggles. We wait. We watch. I keep a lookout with my gun. Let off a few shots to let it know we're here. We decide to pack up for the day. My sister has 5 kids, not willing to risk them. Stand guard while people pack. Have a flashlight. Flashing it in the forest, I see a pair of yellow eyes with blue centers. My sister sees it too. My mother sees it too. We all see it, and I point my rifle and keep watch. My mother calls my brother on my sister's insistence. That face when my brother hunts cougars and bears, and has like 4 to 8 hound dogs he keeps around for that purpose. Feel a little at ease. Time passes, continues like this. Dawn finally comes. See a truck arrive. It's my brother. Hear him walking. Shine light over there. He walks inside, carrying a much stronger rifle than the tiny .22 I use. The children scream, Uncle Anon, excited to see him. I smile at ease, knowing that I have backup and help. Sad inside, because he did not bring his hounds. His hounds would have found it, and he would have a trophy. Happy inside, because I'm not sure his hounds would have found it. This happened in my childhood home. Be me. Be 2000, I think. I was in the 7th grade. I lived just over a mile from the school. It was spring, so it's not that cold. All the snow has melted by now. Heavy rains, though. This day was a heavy rain day. My mother works in the grade school with my sister, and they get out an hour after I do. Not staying around my school, plus I have friends that would call me a pussy if I didn't walk home with them. Get home drenched. Have a dog, a black Labrador. Get greeted at the door. There is nothing like being welcomed home by your dog. The heavy rain is turning more into a storm. I stand on the sun porch and look out at the rainfall. Lightning hits somewhere, probably at the river. Lots of booming thunder follows it, like the thunder burbled and rumbled for a lot longer than normal. Made it home just in time. I hear the door to my sister's and mine room opening and closing. They are on the 2nd floor. Think it could be the wind. It is howling, and the trees in the yard are swaying an awful lot. The storm was a pretty good one. I like storms. I am also probably stupid a little bit. Dog doesn't look fazed, but is also not looking up the stairs. My house was old, like 1900-ish old. The wiring was those nails with the ceramic insulators, and the windows had metal counterweights on the walls. My family now is the one that is updating it. The doors start banging a little harder, and a little more regularly, but not in a rhythm, and they start hitting the door frames out of sync. The door then sounds like it is vibrating back and forth as it shuts, like the door is hitting the door, jams, and vibrating back like a cartoon. It makes a sound I have a hard time describing. It was like the moan of a creaky door, but I could hear the door shaking back and forth as it was swinging shut. It sounded almost like a creepy autotune, before autotuning was widely known about. I can only picture the door acting like a tuning fork, but I did not hear them slam into the door jamb or the wall. They do this for a minute or two. They then slam shut. Both doors, at the same time, and with force. The dining room table was kind of a catch-all at this point in time. My sister and I played sports year-round, and both parents worked, so we were not home to eat there anyway. Clean laundry was there, waiting to be put away. Papers, bills, and my sister's field hockey stick. I grabbed that, and my dog. I have to lead him by the collar to the stairs. I have to also verbally coax him up. He is not fighting me hard, but does not want to go up there. Was very, very reluctant. He never disliked going upstairs, before this or after. I drag him up to the landing. The stairwell was pitch black, and there are no windows in that part of the house. The stairs start one way and cut back on themselves via a landing. Every one of my friends at some point either tripped or complained heavily about the layout and size of the stairs. Make my way all the way up the stairs to the landing room in front of our doors, 2 landing areas. Both doors are closed, that is why it is so dark. I open my sister's first, because you can see the whole room. Tactical brain. My room wraps back because it is an L shape. Can't see the whole room, so I started with the easier one to inspect. Go to open my sister's door. My dog immediately headed downstairs when I let go of his collar to open the door. Thanks a lot. Her room looks clear. Check her windows. All have the winter storm glass still in them, and are all shut and locked. Nothing is broken. No one in the closet. I then go to check my room. Same as sister's. Empty. All the windows were still set up for winter and locked. We had solid glass to help insulate in the winter with screens for the summer. Again, old home. No one could have snuck past me when I was inspecting the room because just about every stair had a creaky spot on them. The stairs were and still are well worn. Parents still live there. I am pretty intimate with those stairs, not only because it felt like I was ascending to my room in a tower sometimes, but they were the bane of my existence when I was trying to sneak in when I was in high school. I knew them extremely well by that point and could make it about halfway up them before I would make noise. Go back downstairs and wait for everyone to get home. Storm still rages into the night, but the house is not creaking and the doors were left open and they don't make any more noise. I still don't know what any of that was. The house still feels like it is alive. Maybe not alive, but like it was or could be. Old houses have a lived-in energy that is hard to describe. Anyone know what I mean by that? To get the ball rolling, I'll share some OC, not mine. So I work a couple of jobs right now, and one of them is at a deli, where I work alongside a 50-year-old Chinese woman, just me and her. She told me this story once during a late shift. Let's call her Rachel. 30 years ago, Hong Kong. Rachel works with her sister in a warehouse. Long, grueling hours. Her sister's husband, Daniel, has some white-collar job. He works long hours too. The 3 of them live together. Because of work, they rarely have an opportunity to spend time together. But one day, Rachel is home from work early. Her sister is still at the warehouse, and Daniel is supposed to be at the office, but as Rachel is doing dishes, she gets a spooky feeling and turns around. Sees Daniel walking out of the kitchen. She never even heard him enter, and he never said hi, which is completely uncharacteristic of him. She calls out to him. Daniel ignores her, turns the corner, and disappears from view. Rachel dries her hands and follows, and sees Daniel is now far down the hallway. She calls again, and Daniel continues walking, turns, and enters his bedroom. The whole time, Rachel only sees him from behind. Rachel is now annoyed, and she rushes into his room to ask him what the hell his problem is. But the room is empty. He searches, thinking he's messing with her, but there is no one there. She searches the rest of the house, but she is alone. Later, she tells her sister what she saw. Sister has seen it too. They decide not to tell Daniel. Occasionally see the double disappearing into some room. Just ignore it. Rachel explained to me, in very broken English, that this sort of thing was considered bad luck to talk about, but it had happened so long ago, she did not care anymore. At this same job, I happened to befriend a different woman who works in the morning shifts, Janet. She works 2 jobs as well, and she told me flat out that her other job, a fast food place, is known to be haunted. People see and hear stuff all the time, including phantom sneezes and coughs, someone sighing deeply, the sound of quick footsteps moving around the back of the kitchen. Janet was especially descriptive about the footsteps. She said they sounded urgent and sometimes made that squeaking sound that you hear on the basketball courts. She also explained that several years back, one of the cooks had actually offed himself. Apparently, he found out that his wife had been sleeping with his coworker, went out and killed himself going 100 miles an hour on the freeway. Now he seems to haunt the place, which is one hell of a fucking afterlife after that terrible tragedy, if you ask me. Anyway, that's just a little background for this particular story. At Janet's other job, people alternate closing. Whoever is closing has to stay an extra 30 minutes, and they are there entirely alone. The last thing that you do is turn off the lights. This is the worst part of the gig because you can hear footsteps follow you out as you leave. Anyway, on one particular night, Janet is walking out of the office, ready to leave, when she spots a figure in the kitchen. Looks like someone walked behind the oven, someone in a work uniform, but she knows that she's alone, and that the place is locked, so nobody could have gotten in. Nervously, she checks everything, but nobody is there. Spooked, she rushes to shut off the lights, hurries out the door. The footsteps follow her out the whole way. That's it. I found those interesting. Maybe someone else will too. Be 9 years old. Visit sister in hospital. Hospital seems cool. Everyone has their own bedrooms and everything. I expect to see more people with broken limbs and stuff, but never mind. Seems like everyone is just milling around, waiting for a ride home. Obviously, it wasn't until I was older I found out it was a mental hospital, which explained a great deal. Sister was around 21 at the time. She introduces me to some of the people she's friends with. Meet this dude who's around 50 years old. Seems totally chill. Big guy, Irish, looked a lot like Mario. Visit sister frequently, and I start playing pool with Mario every time I'm there. When any of them speak to me, he comes across and acts like my defender. It's the only time you'll ever see him be on chill. One day we're playing pool, and he has this kind of episode where he just zones out. Looks straight at me, and honestly it's scary, because it's like the 1,000-yard stare. New York. That's all he says, and then he starts skitzing out and repeating it. Gets cut it off, and I don't finish my game of pool. About 2 weeks later, 9/11 happens. Find out indirectly that Mario has been in and out of these kinds of hospitals since the 70s. When he was in his early 20s, he'd fallen from a fire escape and fractured his skull. Was in a coma for about a week. Seemed fine when he came out of it, but would then start randomly ranting about the IRA. Always before there was a bombing. Even got investigated because they thought he was involved with them. Obviously wasn't. Few years later, he's out and visits us. Stays over that night on the sofa. Wake up to his loud shriek. Fucking Mario standing over my mother, whispering to her while she was sleeping in bed. Starts going apeshit. Ends up arrested. Asked my mother what he was saying, and she said he was just being weird. July bombings happened a couple of days later. Always remember the look on my mother's face when she heard about them. Never see Mario again. I've been fascinated with brain injuries since then. Last year, visiting a maid despite lockdown because of an emergency. One of their horses, everyone's favorite, is giving birth, and there are complications. His family is away for a family visit too. Farm is in the middle of nowhere, so no neighbours to come and help fast. Had to drive for half an hour. Pony dies inside of the mother. What we pull out is already a corpse. Mother luckily survives. It's already late at night, but we still decide to bury it because his family will come back the next morning, and they shouldn't see the corpse. Takes us hours because we have to dig really deep. Put a slab of stone on. They always use the same one when burying dead animals. They leave it on until the earth is hardened a bit, so animals don't dig up the bodies. Afterwards, take a shot on the dead animal's honors. Drive home. Barely 3 hours later, he calls again. Asks me to come over. I'm obviously pissed, especially since he won't tell me why, but mates do what mates do. Sun is just setting. The slab is gone. Not gone as in right beside the grave. Gone as in it's just not there anymore. Grave has been dug out, even deeper than what we dug, and emptied out entirely. There are massive claw marks down there, where the earth turns to loam. We both have no clue what's happening, but he needs me to find the stone slab while he closes the grave, so his family doesn't learn of what happened. I find it, hours later, midday. Luckily, his family decided to stay over for another 3 days. It's at the other end of the farm, several hundred meters away. That is, by the way, when I started to visit X, because I've never been interested or a believer into anything paranormal. This night fucked me up big time. My mate bought several guns, illegal here, and has them hidden around his house and other buildings of the farm. He also decided on selling it after COVID-19 is done, and he can do so without financially ruining himself. Don't blame him, really. Don't know if this fits, but it's the lone freak experience I can't explain in my life. I've been trying to figure out if this was a hallucination or an actual experience, but I had some weird shit go down hunting in northern Kansas last April. Turkey season. Sitting up against a tree on the edge of a field, watching sunrise and letting out a little hen cluck every now and then. Pretty comfy. See movement out of the corner of my eye. Big ass bobcat walking within 5 feet of me out from the woodline. Walks right past me. Turns between me and my decoy. Sits down. Stares right at me. Think about shooting it, but fur bearer season ends in February here. Hunt is pretty much done if there is a predator in the field, but not really upset. Never been this close to a bobcat, so I'm pretty happy just to watch him and see if he does anything cool. Have had opossums and deer roll by me like this, but they always flee when they bust me. The thing is staring right at me. About a minute goes by. Staring contest. Kind of getting uncomfortable. You need to leave. Bobcat said that, not me. I saw its lips move. Sit there like a fucking moron for another moment, trying to figure out what the fuck just happened. Look around to make sure there isn't anyone in the bushes fucking with me. Bobcat is still staring at me. Start to stand up, because I'm freaking the fuck out now. Hello? No answer. Bobcat slowly walks into the brush and disappears. Is anyone here? No answer. Freak out. Grab my turkey decoy and run back to my truck. I have no history of mental illness, outside of some anxiety and depression, when I was a teenager over a decade ago. I take no medications. I had woken up early that morning, but had at least 6 hours of sleep. I had not used any psychedelic in over a decade. I ate a donut and some coffee from the gas station for breakfast. No history of seizures. Nothing else seemed particularly strange. No strange sensations, smells, or visual distortions. Am I crazy? Uncle lived with me and my folks growing up. I was about 10 years old when I found him dead in his room. Took his own life. Box cutter. Slashed his wrists. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling and ceiling fan had blood on them. I remember standing in the doorway. I remember screaming. Dad rushed over to see what was the matter. The thing that sticks out in my memory the most is the ceiling fan on high, spinning and creaking repetitively overhead. Then it's all a blur. Fast forward. Uncle's funeral comes and goes. His old room is cleaned and emptied of all furniture. The door to his room is always kept closed. Nobody goes in there for months. I wake up from a terrible dream one night. In the dream, I'm standing in Uncle's doorway. He's sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at me. His wrists were slashed to hell. His arms are abnormally long in the dreams, so it makes them look even worse. Ceiling fan is creaking repetitively, spinning above me. Creak, creak, creak. I sit up in bed, but I'm awake now. But I still hear that sound. Creak, creak. I lay there for a second, listening to it. I'm not imagining it. For some reason I slip out of bed and into the hall. Looking back, I didn't feel in control of my own body at the time. I approach Uncle's bedroom door. On the other side, I can hear the ceiling fan spinning loudly, clear as day. The image of Uncle from my dream pops into my head. Picture his long arm reaching over to open the door. For whatever reason, I turn the handle. Push door open slightly. Peek inside. The room is empty. Sigh of relief. Look up at the fan. It isn't even on. Creak, creak, creak. What the fuck? I suddenly panic and try to close the door. But at that last second, I feel something tug on it from the other side, keeping it from closing. Fuck this. Abandon ship. Rush to my room. Jump under the covers. Think I hear the door close, but my heart is beating in my ears, so maybe I imagined it. Lay there for a long time, listening to the creaking sound until I pass out from exhaustion and fear.